Well, good morning, everyone. There is a law. This law will help you in so many ways around your life. Speak the word and you can be healed. Speak the word, the situation, circumstance that you're involved in that needs to shift will be shifted. Well, good morning. I am Ausar, also known as Greg Stanton, your facilitator for the Serendipity's Sunday presentation. Each and every Sunday I'm out here. I'm out here in Oasis, Spiritual Center for Divine Living, everywhere. That is, by virtue of this virtual telecast, you can jump in and be blessed by the word that I have for you this morning. Every Sunday morning, Serendipity Sunday. Serendipity means something good and unexpected. This morning, today is July 17th. We are halfway past the year. I believe we are in the sign of Cancer, which is interesting, which is the beetle, the scarab, and which the Greeks call the crab or the scarab. The Greek it's Khepra in the Kemetic terminology. Khepra is the beetle, or the dung beetle particularly, and the Greeks called it the scarab, and the is with the signage of the crab. So that's why we're in the astrological signage, or the Zodiac sign of the crab at this point in time in the year, midway. So we will talk about that a little bit probably this morning. So as I look out there this morning, I want to say good morning to all of you who are joining in the Zoom room. I see you. I hope things are well. I want to say good morning to our international traveler this morning, Myrna Clayton. She is a international singer, and she happens to be on tour in France or in Europe, and so she's joining us this morning. I want to say good morning. I did see your chat there, Myrna. I pray things are well and you're having just a serendipitous time. That is things are much better or greater than you ever thought. For the word tells us God desires to do exceedingly abundantly above anything we can ask or think. And so sometimes we got to make space for source, for divine intelligence to just express itself in an uninhibited ways. Many times we have spoken a word that prohibits source from showing up and showing out in our lives. And we want to explore that on this morning. I've been dealing with, for the last few weeks, I've been dealing with the power of the word, the Hekau. The Kemetic term is the Hekau. Hekau, words of power. And the reason why I'm bringing this present, because as I unpack the Bible, since I read a lot of things, I tend to find strong correlations from my explorations inside of the Kemetic sciences, and then having a thorough understanding of the Holy Bible, or the Helios bibliography, the Sun Book, the Book of Ra, or the Bible as we call it, and I understand the scriptures. And so that's why I can't just toss the Bible, because I believe the Bible is a coded book. Even if I wasn't reading it from a Kemetic perspective, the last 15 years of my life, I've really been studying metaphysics and approaching the scriptures from a metaphysic perspective. And in doing so, it unpacks what I thought I know, and it gives me the ability to drill down in a deeper way. So our words are the most powerful thing we have. And we've been looking at that. And I want to start with a couple scriptures that I introduced you to, maybe didn't introduce you to, and as though you weren't aware of that. Many of you who tune in to the Zoom platform are those who have traditionally followed the Christian pathway, and you're very familiar with the Bible. And my audience, for those of you who follow me, I want you to know specifically that my audience is specifically people of African descent that have a Christian journey. Now, not that I teach universally, so anybody showing up, listening to me can be blessed, but it's to this particular audience that I'm helping them to rewrite, or to deconstruct and then reconstruct Our faith is important to us, and too oftentimes people just say, toss your faith. But if you really have a strong faith, it's impossible just to toss it. You will have all kinds of cognitive dissonance. So I believe that being a spiritual scientist, also having a background in mental health, having a background in positive psychology and understanding the psyche, the human mind, and being a priest somewhat, understanding the spirituality, the soul essence of who we are. I combine all of those, and then I help individuals make this transformation. And today, surprisingly enough, we're talking about the tongue, and we are talking about transformation. So we see this little member, the tongue. All of our tongues are one of the smallest members in our person, but it controls our person. Not only does it control our person, but it controls the experiences that we have in life. What we have in life is the direct result of what we've been thinking and what we've been meditating on, and most powerfully, what we have been saying. That's why we have to understand the scripture says that we must be mindful that you can tell a fool by the multitude of words that that person or that individual speaks. So if you see, the words are powerful. It don't take a lot of words to say something. Particularly if you have a command of the language, particularly English language, there's usually one or two words that can describe the essence of what you're saying. So the lesser amount of words you can use, the more powerful your statement will be. That's why sometimes people say, oh, he used a bunch of, not me, but individuals you may find who have a great command of the English language or have a great understanding of the English language, etymology of words. You find that they use the proper word. And many times we struggle in communicating because we have limited vocabularies. And therefore we use words that we are familiar with. And if we don't have the exact word, we string 2 or 3 words together to hope to convey a certain meaning. But if you want to be a great communicator, it's important that you have a great vocabulary, and not just a vocabulary that is Eurocentric, meaning that it works in the boardroom, or it's what we call the King's English or the good English, but you want to be able to use the words that those individuals you're communicating with understand. Colloquialisms, that's why if you're on the street, you can use a certain word, and that word may mean something in the dictionary differently than what it means to those people. But when you say that word, it has a more powerful oomph to it. So that's something you want to understand. Words are powerful. Now, words are tools that convey images, convey concepts, and communicate from one person to the other what is being desired or expected. The word of God in Psalms 19 and 14, which was one of our jumping off scriptures, it stated, "Let the words of my mouth be acceptable." Now, many times you find in the Baptist church, they will, before they start their message, there's a song that goes, "Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight." And it goes on, and then the congregation responds, and then the preacher began to preach his words, like he's setting up that what I'm about to say is signed off on by God. But here's the scripture. It says, "Let the words of my mouth, let the words of your mouth, and the meditations of your heart," the things you think are not in your head, but the things that move you, "be acceptable in thy sight." That is saying, let them be in alignment with what God has shown you. Okay? It says, "The law is my strength, and the law is my redeemer." So this law of the word is your strength. It is your redeemer. That's Psalms 19 and 14. Now, if you got the email this morning, I gave you an image. In that image, the email gave an image of a tongue. And when I was in meditation the last few days, throughout my days, I go into silent meditations. I was told to look up the tongue. And as I looked up the tongue, I found that image of the organ, the tongue, the anatomy of the tongue, to the whole tongue, from the tip to the root, all the way down and underneath and the sides. And it was interesting when you look at that pink piece of flesh that I put in that image. It had the image of that the tongue, but it looks exactly or resemble the what we call the scarab or the dung beetle in particular. And this is an image that you see oftentimes in the, if you're looking at the Kemetic books, or if you're in the museums, I'm gonna show you a picture of it. You will see this image. I'll put it up on my screen here. Hopefully you can see that. You see that image right there. That image is the image of the scarab of the dung beetle. Notice that it directly looks, I mean, it resembles the tongue. And you see here, you have there's three parts to it, 1, 2, and the top 3. And it's really interesting that in this what you're looking at is called the incorrectly called a cartouche. And a cartouche is a French word for cartridge. When the French originally went to Egypt and began to see these images encased in that blue circle that goes around these 3 images, they called it a cartouche, but it's not a ring. Or a cartouche is a bullet. So it was always shaped like the bullet, and it always had the name of something in it. And so here we look at this particular cartouche, and we see that it has 3 things at the bottom of the beetle, towards the bottom of the screen, that looks like a half, or let's say a turtle's on its back. I'm just using that as that, but it's like a half circle, and it has 3 dots, which represents singularity, and then it has the beetle, and then it has the sun. And basically, what it's saying here is the scarab. The sun is the creator of all life, and I'll go into that and help you understand why they have come away with that understanding. Now, that beetle, I also want to show you what it looks like when it's not in a hieroglyphic or a netter form or a medut form. So you see, those are dung beetles. Those are the scarabs. Those are the same beetles that look like our tongue. You notice there. So if you look at that image that I showed you early on, it looks just like the tongue. And this dung beetle, I'm going to share a little bit about the dung beetle here this morning in my message, because I'm dealing with the tongue and the power of the tongue, and the tongue brings death or life. And if you don't know what you're looking at, the dung beetle is rolling up a ball of manure, or some may say doo-doo. And it rolls it up, not only it rolls it up as a way of cleaning up the ecosystem, it also plants its eggs inside of the dung, the larva, and it helps to cultivate the eggs. And one of the things this dung beetle does, and we'll talk about that, is it pushes this sphere, this circle, which was representative of the sun. And I'm going to tell you why it's representative of the sun, or the power of creation. Now, so I share a lot right there, but I wanted you to get a sense of where I'm going with this message, the correlations between the image of the dung beetle and the tongue. The dung beetle represents, or the beetle, or Khepra. Now, let's use the Kemetic term. It's Khepra, Khepra. It talks about the what they call the scarab or the crab or the beetle, but it is this beetle here. You see, I wear one around my neck, okay, and I also wear one on my pinky finger all the time. When you see me, I most often will have this on, and notice that I have what will be the head of the beetle facing, or the root of the beetle facing south on my body, or always facing the individual I'm talking to, and then the backside of the beetle is facing my head, because what the dung beetle does, or the Khepra does, it moves the sun. It backs towards the sun. So it's orienting itself always to the sun. And when it can't see the sun, as it pushes this circular dung ball that has its larva in it, it pushes it towards the sun in the daytime, and it pushes it towards the moon at night. And if it can't see the moon, it is oriented to the Milky Way. Now that's interesting. But as I was studying the dung beetle in particular, its orientation, they did a scientific experiment that when they covered up the eyes of the dung beetle or the Khepra, it was disoriented because it was not able to orient itself towards either the moon, sun, Milky Way, or the essence of the divine creator. And so once they took that off, they were able to ascertain that it's really orienting itself towards the light. It's orienting itself towards the lesser light, which is the moon, or another way of saying that would be the feminine energy. And in the daytime, it pushes towards the masculine energy represented by the circle ball called Ra, or the sun. And it pushes towards the Milky Way, which is inclusive of the divine masculine energy and the divine feminine energy. Now, that's just a little science lesson for you, Kemetic science. The scripture tells us in John chapter 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. So we're talking about the tongue. We're talking about the power of the tongue. Everything without the Word, without a tongue, you cannot speak. You cannot enunciate something into the world. So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, or source, divine intelligence, and the Word, logos, Khepra, no, not Khepra, Atum, was God. Okay, and that same way was in the beginning with God, or source. All things were made by it, because we have made God a male in this scripture, because those who originally gave us the Bible were very male oriented, and so many of the things that allude towards God or toward the creator is depicted in a male way. It said all things were made by it, and without it was nothing made that was made. So here's something important you need to know. Anything you are attempting to manifest, to bring forward into your life, has to be spoken in. Now, it can be spoken deliberately, intentionally, or unintentionally, in a way that's unintentional. And even if it's unintentional, the world in which we live, the word says, as long as the earth remains, it will be seed time harvest. So the ecosystem that we live inside of is very fruitful. So words that you speak, they will either bring light, darkness, life, or death into your life. It says in it was life, was the word. And the life was the light of men. So the word is life. And it's this word you speak that is the light of men that provides light to you. Now look at this, verse 5, it says, I'm talking about John chapter 1, verse 1 through 5. And the light shines in darkness, and the darkness comprehends it not. That means it cannot apprehend it, it cannot capture it, it cannot keep it from breaking forth. Out of darkness, light comes. There's an importance to know that there's a dance between darkness and light. One is not better than the other, but you need dark as well as light in order to see that things are right. In order to see the thing that you are creating, you start first in the darkness. In the darkness, there's an illumination that does not take sunlight, an illumination that does not come forth from a physical light, but there's an internal illumination, and that is the place of source. So source inside of darkness, in the recesses of your mind, shines forth and brings something imagined. That thing that is imagined is meditated on. And when the meditation becomes so clear, vivid, and experiential, you usually express it in a word. And that is, that word breaks forth from darkness into the light. And the darkness cannot comprehend, cannot keep it from breaking forth. Now, that's a metaphysical breakdown of John 1 and 5. So let me share a couple of things with you this morning because I wanted to make a strong correlation. I found it kind of interesting. Let me see if I see any comments. Good to see everybody over here this morning. I hope you're doing well. If you got a question, you can raise your hand. If you got a comment, if question I want to deal with now, comments, put them in there and we can circle back to the comments because I want you to be able to track with me. And if you got a question that's not being answered. So when we look at the cartouche that I showed you, or the wren that I showed you, it had a picture of that beetle. There's different kinds of beetle, but this particular beetle is called the scarab, or by the Greeks, but its name is Khepra. And so your tongue is like Khepra. Now, it's interesting if we understand the metaphysical message or the analogy that's being made between the tongue and and Khepra. The tongue is asexual, meaning the tongue itself has no gender, but is able to produce. Okay. Now, when you look at there are certain animals, I've been told that there are certain animals that are certain lower forms of plant life, or what do you call it? The bugs and things like that. They can produce asexually. That is, it's called Parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis. Okay, it comes from the Greek word parthenos, which means virgin. So even when we look at Mary, represented a virgin birth. So the parthenos is virgin, and the word genesis, or parthenogenesis, is origin, virgin origin, development of a female, rarely a male, through the same sex without fertilization. So being able to produce without the opposite sex, and not saying that it's producing with the same sex. No, it's saying being able to produce without sex. Like you have the ability to produce something just by speaking something. So this is a deeper conversation. It's not about physical sex, but because physical sex, the culmination of physical sex is the ability to procreate, recreate ourselves and have children. But then the ability to speak a word is the same as a creative process. So your tongue is a asexual energy, meaning ability to speak it and it can manifest it without a male or a female or some form of intercourse. So to create something just by speaking it. So we see here, we have to understand that source is neither male or female, it's asexual. Galatians 3:28 tells us there's neither a Jew nor a Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male or female, for you are all one in Christ. So once you reach a God consciousness, a Christ consciousness, once you reach and can really express as Ausar or Aset or Haru, Haru is on the way to the son or the daughter. Haru is on the way to becoming the Ausar or the Aset. Now, what do I mean by that? That once we move into the I am, let's use that term, I amness. So when we say I am, it is the creative force. You say for your life, I am sick, or I am healthy. Let's use positives. I am, that's the definitive that we work with. I am that I am. I am what? So always be conscious of what you say you are. I am healthy. If you are saying I am sick, even though the reality of you may be experiencing sickness or disease, just the fact that you energize it with I am, you infuse it into it morphs into even more. So you have to be very careful what you use tie the I am to. So the tongue, now the tongue is a member that the scripture tells us that we have to really bridle our tongues. We have to watch our tongues. And the Bible tells us in James 1:19, know this, my brothers and sisters, let every person be quick to hear. That's why you got 2 ears, so you can capture it. Slow to speak, because you got 1 mouth, and slow to anger. That is, don't allow your emotional self to be in charge of this little member. Now, something you need to know about your tongue. James 1:26. 1:26 and 27 says, if anyone thinks that he is religious or spiritual and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. Let me reword that in 2022, in a 2022 way. It says, if anyone thinks he is spiritual, enlightened, a God class being, and they do not control their tongue, but deceive their heart. Okay, to deceive means you go against your heart, or you manipulate, or you do something that is not in representation of this highest and greatest good, or you are like a con man. Okay, you are convincing. So sometimes we say things that go against our hearts. And so we are conning our heart. We're deceiving our hearts. So your heart is where source resides. And so where source resides, now, and when I say your heart, don't necessarily mean the fleshly organ, but the center of your being, and that chakra right there. Okay, it says that this person that does this has a worthless spiritual system, a worthless religion. Their enlightenment is false. Spirituality that is pure, enlightenment that is pure, a God consciousness that is pure, or a source consciousness that is pure, and undefiled before source is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. So to say, to be in the world, but not of the world, to be usable, to understand that your blessings is not just for you, but your blessings has a mission. And what better mission to help those who could benefit most from your service? Now, James 1:26, the whole essence is about the tongue. You have to, so the dung beetle, one of the filthiest things on your body is said to be the tongue. Okay, that is something I've heard so many times growing up. We brush our teeth and all those kinds of things, but one of the most filthiest members on your body is your tongue. And that's interesting because the dung beetle, which looks like your tongue, or the Khepra that resembles your tongue, finds its entire life dealing with, let me use this word, shit, manure, okay? Planting its seeds in manure. Now, it's interesting that need to know this. Why does it plant its larva in this manure? Because in this manure, it has a level of energy. It's a compacted circle that it has rolled up into a perfect sphere, and it pushes it along until the larva begins to come forth. But it also represents when the Kemetic scientists, the priests, observed this insect doing this, it was representation of the sun. This ball that it rolled, it represented transformation. It represented something that was dead. It represented something that is coming to life. So as it rolled this ball through the energy of the sun, the energy of the moon rays, through the energy of the Milky Way, ultimately at some point there was a rebirthing, meaning there came forth new larvae. So your tongue is similar to that. It can It moves you, it motivates you to say or do things. Your tongue also has the ability to create something. Your tongue has the ability to transform your life by the things you say. So your tongue is a transformative factor. So I'm looking at this whole image of the dung beetle in the wren in a whole different way, other than saying that it represents the creative force of the sun. It also represents, is telling us something about our tongues, that we have to, through the manure of life, come life. Okay, many times we want to just have a life filled with all good things, like a bed of roses. But sometimes you're going to encounter things in life that is just, you say life is full of but it's in the oomph of life, the things you don't enjoy, that you grow through. You grow through the things you go through. You have to keep it moving, so that, and stay oriented. Just like the dung beetle, it pushes that ball as it moves backwards. It pushes that ball, that sphere of dung, and it's oriented towards the light. It's oriented to either to the moonlight, sunlight, or the Milky Way. It's oriented to the spirit of source, the spirit of creation. And so my word to each of you this morning is, let your tongue be oriented towards that which brings life. Let your tongue be oriented to that which turns up the light. Let your tongue be a creative force in your life. If you don't want to experience it, don't say it. If you don't want it to manifest in your life, don't say it. And what's more important, don't meditate on it. Let the meditations of your heart be acceptable. Let it be those things that align with what you want to experience. Come on now. So when we look at this whole beetle, this scarab, this cancer, this the signage of the cancer. I'm not talking about the disease of cancer. We are seeing something more than an image of an insect. So I want you all to maybe take some time and drill down into that a little further. Maybe this Tuesday night, if I'm free, I'll do it. I've been on a break. I may have a special class that dives deeper into Khepra as the nectar. A nectar is a manifestation, just like Ra was a manifestation of divine intelligence. Okay, so this little insect was an aspect. It says a lot about an aspect of the divine creator. So before I close this morning, I want to share with you a couple of scriptures that has to do with your tongue. When we look at Matthew 12 and 36 and 37, it says, I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word they speak. The day of judgment is at the end of each day is your judgment. Every day when you lay your head to the pillow, oftentimes you reflect over the day. You are interpreting the day. You usually are judging yourself as you have accomplished or not accomplished, good or bad. But let the time of judgment be known as a time of recapitulating. You are going back over your day to see if there was lessons that was learned over the way, or if you employed principles in the right way. So he says, I tell you on the day of judgment, and many people read that towards about when you die, you're going to either go to heaven or hell. No, it's a veiled conversation here. I tell you on the day of judgment, you will give account for every careless word you speak. Every day you give account for every careless word you speak, because it cultivates that word. It may not manifest the next day. It may manifest 6 months down the line. It may manifest 6 years later. See, every seed has a maturation time. You could sow it today, don't mean that you'll see the fruit of it today. You can sow it. When we first moved to Maywood back in 1968, there was a tree in our backyard. Every year it brought forth leaves, and we would sit under it as a shade tree. But then one year, these little things was on this tree. They were they were pears. No, they were Were they pear? Yeah, it was a pear tree. And so we began to see, but as soon as those little pears came up, we couldn't eat them because they were not, the tree was not bringing forth mature pears yet. It took years before that happened. So sometimes a seed planted in your life may crop up as something favorable, but when it comes into full maturity, it's something that you would say, I don't want this. I didn't create this. Yes, you did. Many years ago, you spoke it. That's why you got to cultivate your mind. You got to go through your garden and you got to pull up. Mary, quite contrary. How does your garden grow? You got to go through the recesses of your mind, the garden of your mind, and you got to always be looking to uproot those things that have been planted that shouldn't be there. Sometimes things fall over into your fertile place that's going to grow there that you didn't plant there. Why? How is that? If you're watching a television program, so something is being subliminally planted into your mind, and ultimately that seed grows. See, your mind is a fertile place. The mind will begin to project the image. You begin to meditate on the image. You ultimately speak that thing, and that thing will manifest. And sometimes things come forth without the spoken word. Now, the speaking of a word causes things to happen in a more instantaneous way. When you allow a word to just be, to fester there, to meditate there, it it's still being cultivated, it's been created, and it grows, and it ultimately manifests in your life. So you have to watch it. Like if you would think, okay, cancer runs in my family, and in the back of your mind, you're not speaking about cancer, but in the back of your mind, you have levels of fear about, my mama died from cancer, my great grandmama died from cancer, my great grandma. Well, you don't have you're not genetically predisposed to cancer from the perspective of you have a cancer gene. All of us has the cancer gene. But here's the thing, there's things in your environment that has cut that thing on. Maybe it was the food that mama was eating, grandmama was eating, great grandma. It was the stress that they was dealing with, and it cut that cancer genome on. And so now you are cutting the cancer. You don't eat the same food grandmama eat. You don't have the same stressors that grandmama had or great grandmama had or your mama had. But why does this gene come out? Because you have projected, you said, cancer runs in my family. So the power of your thought and spoken word, you cut the genome on, it's called epigenetics, and you cut it on through thought, and it begins to manifest in your life. So I just want to tell you, you got to be very careful. So it says right there, you will give account for every careless word you speak. James 3:2, we all stumble in many ways. And if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man. And if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. So it's telling you that if you want to move into perfection, completion, wholeness, you have to watch what you say. Okay. And if you are able to control your tongue, you can control your entire body. James 3:8. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is restless, evil, full of deadly poison. Okay. No human being, but a divine spiritual being, which you and I are. We have the ability, because we understand the principle of thought, meditation, thought, image, imagination, the creation of the spoken word. So we are slow to speak, but we're not speaking based on emotions, but we're speaking based on a decision, because we know our words are declarative. You should decree a thing and it shall be. You shall decree a thing. The fact when you say it, you don't have to say, I declare or I decree. The moment you understand the power of your word, when you speak your word, it moves with the power behind the word. So he says, but no human being, but a spiritual being can tame the tongue, for it is restless. It can be evil. It can be full of deadly poison. Now, we know that if you take cyanide in and of itself, it will kill you. But a little cyanide in the right portion can be medicinal. And so the tongue is the same way. The tongue can either bring life and light, or death and darkness. The power of life is in your tongue. He says in Ephesians 4:29, a couple more of these. Let no corrupt talking come out of your mouths. Corrupt. That means what you speak has the ability to tear down your life or someone's life. So let whatever you speak be affirming, building up, or if you can't build it up, shut up. Let no corrupt talk come out of your mouths, but only such as good for building up. See, there it is. That's Ephesians 4:29. As fits the occasion. Or another way of saying that, only speak the thing that represents your highest and greatest good, what fortifies you, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. It may give a passage to those who hear. Because if they watch you, hear you, and see you, now they have been given a sense of direction, that clarity, and it also represents, it gives love. When you're not speaking things that tear people down, you're cultivating an atmosphere of love, of wholeness, of harmony. Proverbs 18:1 is the scripture I was talking to you about a little earlier. It says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Somebody wants to know where it was. Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. So the tongue is also a muscle. So it's a powerful tool. And those who love it will eat of its fruits. Those who understand the tongue will eat of its fruit. It doesn't mean that you need to cut your tongue out. It means that if you're speaking words that are light, are life-giving, are creative versus tearing down, destructive, you are going to eat the best of the land. But if you're speaking words that are venomous, you're going to die. Your life will be reflective of it. Proverbs 18:21. Somebody needs to meditate on that. So Ephesians 4:1, it says, I therefore, a prisoner of the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of your calling, to which you have been called, and all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body, one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope that belongs to all, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, the same power that raised Christ from the dead, according to that story, is the same power that dwells in each of us. It's the I am, okay? It's the Ka, it's the Spirit, that Spirit of source that is in all of us. And the one thing I like about Ephesians, one of the scriptures that says that if this same power that raised Christ from the dead dwells in you, it shall quicken your mortal body. So once we come into the realization of the oneness of being that we are with the I am, it gives us the ability to quicken our body. That's the scripture I use for healing. If healing is in your body, you are needed in the body, first you come into the realization that the same power, the resurrection power, see, that's the tongue. The resurrection power is in the tongue. Speak the word, speak life into your organ, speak life into your being. Okay, so that's important. And we want to close with this again. Know this, my brothers, my sisters that's tuning in. Let every one of you be quick to hear, be attentive, and slower to speak. Slow your speech. Don't let your speech be motivated by emotions that don't represent your highest and greatest good. If it's not an emotion that you're running continually, most people are not angry all day long. Usually there's a catalyst that makes us angry. Usually there's a catalyst that causes us to get upset. Breathe and don't let words roll off your lips that you don't want to come back to you. Loose lips sink ships. So there you have it. Today, we're talking about words of power. You can't speak a word of power without the tongue. The tongue is a member that can either kill you or enliven you. So I pray something has been said this morning that has been uplifting and encouraging, most of all, enlightening. If you got something to comment, we're going to go into the green room here shortly. We can have a little dialogue this morning because I don't have to be anywhere. So I can stick around and for the get down, talk to you about some things as it relates to this message. If this is your first time tuning in, again, I'm Ausar, Auspicious Ausar, also known as Greg Stanton. If you want to know more about me, go to the website, oasisspiritualcenter.com, oasisspiritualcenter.com. Poke around, you'll find out more about the ministry. Also out there, if you want to be a blessing to this ministry, if you want to bless me, you can go to the website. Or if you want to bless me through Cash App, or you can go to you can just dial my number, not dial, put in 708-544-4946. Somebody type that in for me. 708-544-4946 or 708. No, use that one. 708-368-1076. Yeah, 708-368-1076. That goes directly to the ministry. Or you can just go out to the website, click the link, give, and it has all the different platforms that you can give through and bless the ministry. Now, I make space in my conversation with you for the law of circulation to operate. Just as well as I have given, I have to be open to receive. Just as well as you received, you should be open to give. So this morning, don't give in a way that you've given in the past, that is because of obligation, but give from your heart, not your head. Don't give by what's measured out, but give by what is moved upon you to give. It could be $1, it could be more, it could be whatever. That's between you and source. But I want to say thank you for those who support the ministry in whatever way you have supported it, the frequency of support, the amount of support. I say thank you on behalf of Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living. All right, if you want to join me Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. Central Standard Time, you can find this on the website under prayer. We have a morning prayer line, 6 a.m. to 6:15, 6:20-ish. Not your typical prayer line. I guarantee you, you'll be blessed. Join us on a Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. It's only 15 minutes. It goes really quick. We do a breathing exercise, and we have a meditative thought. We have a powerful affirming statement of prayer, and we have intercession for those who have something going on in their life and they just want to share and want someone to stand in agreement with them. We do that. So that's all I have this morning. Let's say the chat is turned off, so you know. Let me see. How do I turn the chat on? It should be on. Let me see what's happening here. Thank you for letting me know that, Felicity. 1 second here. Let me find that chat and see what's going on. Show chat. Earl Rogers, how are you this morning?
Great day, everyone. I'm doing very well.
Awesome.
How are you?
I'm doing extremely well.
Good. As I was listening, I was curious about something. I thought that the how do you say, the zodiac sign of Cancer was represented by the crab, not a beetle.
So here's the thing. The zodiac sign that you see is the Greek influence zodiac sign. The one that most Americans go after is the crab is the one that the Greeks use, the symbol the Greeks use, but it really morphs into the Kemetic symbol of the scarab, not the scarab, the Khepra, the beetle, the dung beetle Khepra. Okay. And it's half year. The Cancer energy. So the planet that aligns to what they call the crab or Cancer is the moon. Example, every sign, zodiac sign, like I'm a Capricorn. The planet, the Capricorn planetary alignment is to Saturn. Saturn has the most influence on those who are born in the season of Capricorn, that winter month, those winter months. You get an example, because I know that all of my life, I know one of the things about Saturn, and this is a value added in this conversation for those who's following. Saturn is a planet doesn't play. It's the planet of hard knocks. It's a planet that teaches you something. Now, even though I'm born in Capricorn and the planet of most influence is the planet of Saturn, all of us need to know this. No matter where you're born, every planet has a level of influence on you in a particular house of your life. Now, I don't get into astrology in the sense that I don't study it for other people. I study it for myself. I align everything for myself. But I do encourage you to get to know a little bit about the time you were born, what planetary influences there are, because they influence you. Now, the scarab or the beetle or the Cancer crab is oriented toward the planet of the moon. And that's what I told you. The one thing about the scarab or the Cancer is, which comes from Khepra, the dung beetle, which I showed you, is oriented towards the moon, the sun, the Milky Way. It's showing you that your orientation goes beyond female energy, male energy, but all energy. The Milky Way represents the combined masculine energy, feminine energy, or the positive, negative energy. The sun represents the positive, life-giving force of the sun, really powerful. The moon represents the birthing force. Most things are born at night, or intimacy takes place for the human being most often in the night hours when people come together. And so we understand that those lights, the moon, the sun, the Milky Way. So once we really understand on a deeper level our zoo types or our zodiac signs, our guiding numbers, those kinds of things, we have a better sense of who we are, our uniqueness. Yeah. So that's they're one and the same. But the truest rendition, when you go to if you ever look up Dendra, the Temple of Dendra, on the ceiling of the Temple of Dendra is the first what we call zodiac sign. Zoo type. And they call it zodiac sign because it uses animal types, zoo types. Now, who were the progenitors of using animal types? The Cometians. They use netters. A netter is an image, okay, of a principle that is depicted through a natural or nature's depiction of source. Like the beetle or the Khepra represented certain things. Sun represented the essence of a life-giving force of God. So these images go back to nature. That's why the Egyptians call it netter. They didn't use the term God. They use the current term netter or netteru. Okay, either whether it's being singular or plural. Netter. Okay, a divine manifestation of source in the form of that which is being depicted. Okay, but your tongue is a netter. Your tongue, that little member, it can defile you. It's represented through the understanding of the Khepra. So your tongue is Khepra. So good, awesome. Let me see. I got a couple other questions. Let's go to. Is that good? Is that good, Cheryl? Is that?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for asking that. Okay, let's go to Amir. Good morning, Amir. Now I'll come right to you, Mom, here shortly. Good morning, Amir. You have the mic.
Red Rising King, how are you today?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
I want to first of all acknowledge an appreciation how Source led me to you and this divine teaching today. Rich, thorough, and applicable in everything that I could think and do for today's lessons to be used tomorrow, and tomorrow. Reflecting on my yesterday, I realized that I did not apply certain aspects that today's lessons have brought to my attention. So first of all, I apologize to myself for that denial. But tomorrow and the rest of this day, as they say, it's on and popping.
That's right. Amir, that's what people need to hear. It's called spiritual maturity. taking responsibility. It's not reflecting on what we didn't do from the place of judgment, but saying to better myself, I must acknowledge what I didn't do that was expedient that I did do. And now I'm going to do. So I really appreciate you sharing that. That's powerful. And we appreciate you. Before we go, if you see here on the screen, you see the pictures, 2 pictures. You see the picture of the tongue, and then you see the picture of the beetle or the Khepra. So those are the 2 pictures I want you to be mindful of. Okay. And then I wanted to share that with you. And then I share this last picture that's the dung beetle, Khepra. You see, rolling the manure in a sphere. And then lastly, that same beetle in one of the wrens that has a metanetter or a hieroglyphic writing that is denoting the power, the creative force of the sun. Okay. Awesome. So that's all I have this morning. I pray something that's been said again that's uplifting and encouraging. And I'm going to close this morning with what we started.
Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time of day that it may be that you're tuning in to the channel. This is Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living. I am Ausar, also known as Greg Stanton, the facilitator for the teachings that take place inside of Oasis Spiritual Center. I'm glad you decided to join this viewing on today. A couple things I wanted to say. You see the scarab beetle, the Khepra, which represents transformation. You see the King of Spades, the highest card in the deck, represents transformation. Around my neck, you can see that I wear a scarab beetle, a gold scarab beetle, along with I wear a silver scarab beetle on my left index finger or pinky finger. And I have a C on. The C represents consciousness. The C represents colored folks. The C represents conscious and transformation. Just being aware, just being conscious does not mean that you're in the process of transformation. Transformation has to be an intentional decision on your part. So as you've chosen to come out here today to listen to this particular video, I pray that you find some information, that you find some inspiration. But it's my heart's desire that you take it to application. That is, information may inspire you. And just being inspired don't necessarily bring forth the change for your highest and greatest good. So, as you listen to today's teachings, if you enjoy it, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And also, if you want to be aware of when I put out a new video, make sure you hit that button that says notification. In addition to that, if you look up in the banner section of this YouTube channel, there's a website that you can click on and you can find out what we believe, how we live our lives, and what we're about. No, this is not a church, even though there has some similarities to it, but it's a teaching center. It's a spiritual development center. It's a place of transformation. My audience is more of those who have had a Christian background and have left Christianity or are in the process, like myself, of just totally deconstructing it. I believe in order for us as people of African descent, that we must take what has been given to us, and many times it was ours in the first place, and it's been adulterated, and we have to deconstruct it, take it back to its original forms. So I choose not to throw Christianity totally out, but I choose to deconstruct it. Why? Because I know that Christianity at its core is an ancient African spiritual system, particularly tied to the Nile Valley spiritual system, the Ausarian spiritual drama. So listen to the teachings. They're practical. I'm a spiritual scientist. I don't believe that you can separate science from spirituality nor can your spirituality be separated from science. They're one and the same. I'm a critical thinker. I love colored conscious people. So if this video is appealing to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button and consider contributing. We don't do this. I don't do this because I have a need or greed, but I always make the space for those who find value in what is being delivered to them to support the ministry. It's all about the law of circulation. As money goes out, money comes in. So my website has the links that you can use in order to transmute that which you have in your hand into the ministry. Give from your heart, not your head. So enjoy the teaching today, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and also share it with someone.